everybody. Welcome to PFPod, the podcast where we break down the action, strategy, and excitement of robotics competitions like FIRST and beyond. From last-minute pit fixes to championship-winning plays, we're here to talk about what makes robotics more than just a competition. So whether you're a builder, coder, driver, or just love the energy of a great event, we've got stories, insights, and maybe a few battle scars to share. So let's gear up, dive in, and talk about the world of competitive robotics. Except we're not talking about robots today. As you'll notice, I am flying solo today as the only podcast host because this is my farewell episode. As of today, we're filming this on April 24th, and I graduate 3 weeks from tomorrow, which is a little crazy. You know, we're going to recount my time in PFP, my time at Purdue, my time in FIRST, my next steps, just overall farewell to Sam as a Gen 1 podcast host. So I think what I'll start with as a whole is why Purdue and what Purdue meant to me going into college. So I grew up just outside of Indianapolis, and both my parents went to Purdue. My dad went to Purdue for economics, and my mom went to Purdue for education. So very different experiences than me. I'm graduating with industrial engineering. So when I was in like middle school, high school, I was like your grade A, type A, like get all A's, like the high achiever on the projects that has to have a leadership position and everything she's involved in. Like I was that person. And so as somebody that lives an hour from Purdue, I didn't think Purdue was a high enough achievement for college. I felt like, oh, this is in my backyard. This is like, I wanted to go to somewhere like Stanford, MIT, like Harvard. I was applying to all these crazy, like not all these reach schools thinking that like, you know, I was a good candidate, but as you guys all know, like the collegiate pools just keep getting more and more competitive. And so I ended up going between Purdue and Georgia Tech. And a lot of the decision for me at the end of the day was financial, but I was really wary about going to Purdue because I felt like I was just following in my parents' footsteps and I wouldn't have an original experience. I was really nervous. I grew up another thing about Purdue is like I grew up going to Purdue. So my dad is a huge Purdue fan. He has season football, season basketball, we had season volleyball tickets for 10 years growing up. Like I was at Purdue probably every other weekend. And so not only was Purdue like somewhere I was like, oh, that was my parents' path. It was like I spent my whole childhood at Purdue. So to me, it was not even like an original place to go because I'd already been there, seen everything, whatever. So I really like was not super excited about coming to campus. I was nervous about having the same experience as my parents. I was nervous about being too stressed about engineering and not enjoying it. I was nervous about finding friends or it being high school 2.0. Like there were so many what ifs and it wasn't 100% a clean slate for me like it is for so many people. And so I was a little wary. I think what made my Purdue experience so like different in the end though, a lot of that was PFP because you know, with my mom being in education, my dad being in economics, they weren't super involved in like the technical engineering side of things. And when I was in high school, I didn't realize that FIRST was as big of a community as it was until I was a senior. So I won Dean's List at a district event, and then got put on what FIRST Indiana calls the Student Board of Directors, and then I got elected as president of the Student Board of Directors, and all of a sudden my view of FIRST started to be a lot more full picture. I didn't even realize that there was, like, I'm going to be honest, I know there's FTC people standing in the room. I didn't know FTC existed until my senior year of high school because, like, my district had one team, one FRC team. We didn't really collaborate with other teams. Our outreach was not great. We were a very robot-focused team. And so I didn't realize how much of an impact the FIRST community as a whole had. And so my senior year, getting that opportunity was huge for me. It was getting to work on impact with my team for their second ever impact submission because we did it my junior year because I really wanted to. And then my senior year, we finally like were getting into the nitty gritty of it. With that, I was on the student board and the whole thing on that year was I graduated in 2021. So the student board my senior year was all about finding community through the pandemic with students that basically had everything taken from them. My senior year, my mentors often were kind of like, oh, you guys kind of like gave up. And it was very much like a no, we didn't give up. We kind of had like our entire season taken out from under us, and like who would want to try at that point. It was my senior year was no competitions, no real robot build season. Like the challenges were very weird. Like the only thing we had was an off season in the summer, and like our team was like not too keen on letting the seniors compete, like the graduated seniors compete in that event. And so basically I was building a robot and doing all this stuff for a team without like getting to see the fruits of my labor, which at the end of the day there's a little bit, I feel like, of a selfish motive to everything. And like being able to see your final product and be able to talk about it being successful and like have that impact and like feel good about yourself in that way is, I feel like, something a lot of people really didn't get in the 2020 to 2021 season. So I try to reshift my focus to being, how do I build community in FIRST? And I started that with student board, and being president and trying to create forums and podcast episodes and getting to know Chris and, at the time, Renee Becker-Blau, who was the president of Finn, and growing relationships with them and learning how important the FIRST community is. Once I got to Purdue, I knew that I was going to feel really lost unless I had the FIRST community with me. And I knew that PFP existed because the student board had done an event with them. And so I was like really consistent with 2 orgs my freshman year. And that was the Society of Women Engineers and Purdue FIRST Programs. And I realized how passionate I was about being able to provide FIRST experiences to students, because knowing in college who I know did FIRST, those people not only were well-rounded in terms of engineering skills, but like I just think FIRST students possess such an empathy and like they take those core values and they really make them who they are, and like make your inclusion, your impact, discovery, innovation, teamwork, fun. Like a lot of FIRST kids, like, I think, live those, and that became really obvious when I went to college, and that I still wanted to continue to surround myself in that community. And so my time in PFP, I started in events freshman year. So I was a general member my first semester because I wanted like a little bit of a break going into the FIRST community again. And then my second semester, I was fun fact for everybody that doesn't know, it sounds weird outside my arc, but I was fundraising coordinator for a semester, which was my first technical PFP leadership role. But I was also one of the people in charge of the future planning committee, which was planning our boiler bot battle and forums for the next fall semester. And I really fell in love with event planning and really wanted to be events director. And so I picked up my first events director role as a sophomore, planning boiler bot battle and planning forums. And yeah, so that was my first time on PFP exec. I would say my sophomore year on exec was definitely my hardest year on exec, and also it was a really big growing experience. I had never had a leadership role with that much responsibility before, so it was interesting to plan that event and just all our events and work with, our exec board had a little bit of a weirder dynamic that year, so going through and working through all of those conflicts while also like being able to manage an event that has like 1,200 people going to it, and also being a sophomore, so you're in like all your major weed out classes. It was like a recipe for disaster, I'm not gonna lie. And then junior year, I was events director again. I was off campus in the fall because I was taking a co-op, which was honestly one of my favorite things I did throughout my time at Purdue. I worked for Disney for 4 months, and it was wonderful. And then I came back and I ran for president, got president, and that's all I've been doing since we last spoke, is being president. I've loved that role. I think just being able to be one of the reasons that people find community in college is an experience that I've really valued, and being able to prove that the FIRST community continues after you graduate high school, and that it's not just something you have to stay involved in as a high school student, that you can be involved as a collegiate and beyond. And I think that's kind of my journey. I'm going to get a little bit more into like other questions and things that I did throughout my time at Purdue, but it's definitely been a little bit of a crazy journey. And so beyond Purdue FIRST, I'm also involved in the Society of Women Engineers. I've been a chair for them for 3 years, and then I also was the internal affairs officer of Women in Industrial and Systems Engineering. I was in a sorority for a certain period of time. I'm an honors college TA. I did BGR, Boiler Gold Rush, which is like our orientation program. I was a team leader for 1 year. I also am an Alpha Pi Mu, the Industrial Engineering Honor Society. And so I have a couple other involvements that I do throughout campus, but PFP has always been the one that has been closest to my heart. I think by being involved in all that other stuff, while also being involved in PFP, allowed me to learn really the skill of time management. I think that's the thing I'm taking away from college the most. And also staying involved in things that you're passionate about. By the end of senior year, the thing that I spend the most of my time doing is PFP. I still am involved in SWE. My role in SWE is spreading outreach in the community via STEM activities. And so I've been able to like rope FIRST in through that and like do classroom visits based on FIRST stuff. And it's still very like FIRST values related. But beyond that, like I've realized that my real passion is being able to give back to the community, especially in like a STEM education capacity, which is something that I'm grateful for. I also think a lot of my other roles tapped into different areas of an organization where like PFP, a lot of it was like very community service and outreach oriented. So like SWE, it was professional, and then it was social, and then it was outreach, and then WISE, so like Women in Industrial and Systems Engineering, has been all social, and like being in sorority and being a TA, like they're all very different skill sets you have to have. And I think being able to like code switch is like the technical psych term, but like being able to switch between having different roles and different responsibilities and using different parts of my brain to complete tasks or responsibilities has been huge throughout my time in college. I think also PFP was a nice escape from being a student. As you'll notice, all my other clubs were about being an engineer. And like obviously there's an inherent part to FIRST that's like also being an engineer and being technical and like valuing STEM education. But it's not about using your engineering skills or like you having a common background in engineering, and that's the reason why you're together. I love PFP because the reason we're all here is out of selflessness. Like I can look at every single person at a PFP meeting and be like, there is at least some part of you that is selfless enough to be a part of an org where you personally inherently don't get anything out of being here. You are doing this for the betterment of your community, the betterment of the people around you, for the betterment of the next generation. And I honestly, that's why I stayed in PFP, is because I value the empathy and the people, and the qualities that it creates. Like regardless of all the opportunities, I think the thing I'm taking away most is like everybody that I'm gonna miss at the end of this year, and knowing like that this is just a good group of people that unfortunately like has to overturn every 4 years, and I am at the overturn point. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna talk about post like my going through my whole experience and the stoppy stuff is also some of my favorite memories and maybe not so favorite memories of my time throughout PFP. So I think something that I'm extremely grateful for is PFP has given me some of my best friends in college. I'm going to do a little sentimental moment here. Oh, I can't thank this episode without thanking my two favorite and least favorite people in the world. Quincy Tortle and Gabe Howell. They're my fellow officers. I don't think I could have gotten through being president without them. They have been absolutely like key to not only like my success but this organization's success, and I think they deserve their flowers as well for like being such great officers. And they have to put up with me every week. I'm definitely like, I don't think any of us are like true extroverts, but I think I'm the most extroverted of the three of us. And Quincy especially definitely has to put up with a lot of Gabe and I's antics. And I have a lot of really just great memories with like them in officer meetings or like at competitions. And I am really grateful for like their friendship and like being able to get through this year with them. So that's some of my other favorite things. My other favorite person is Sam, our media director, who was featured in our ASMR episode that's either coming up or has already been posted. And they actually were somebody that I met during Boiler Gold Rush. So when I was a team leader, Sam was one of my students, and they were like, oh, so in high school I was on a robotics team. And I was like, what kind of robotics team? And they were like, oh, 1024. And I was like, kilobytes. And they were like, okay. And I was like, you should join PFP. And they were like, okay, Sam, whatever you say. And then first semester I didn't really see them at all because they were, I don't know, avoiding me or something. And then second semester, Sam pulled up to, sorry, they're behind the camera right now. They pulled up to one of the first meetings of the semester, and it was like fireworks. was so excited to see them. They're now one of my like closest friends leaving college. I'm really grateful because I don't think without PFP we wouldn't obviously be this close, but like I'm just grateful for them. I think they've been a really great backbone throughout my time in the org. They've done great stuff for the media sub team. They're always in my car when we drive to competitions. Lots of fond memories of me crashing out, of them crashing out, everything in between. It's great. Some other stuff. I think PFP had some really fun socials. Or drives back from competition. Honestly, I love events. I love being talent. A lot of my favorite memories are when I'm not actively doing robot stuff. Like, yeah, sure, it's great to MC finals. It's also great to drive home from competition. Somebody did tell you to take a 15-minute detour so that we can get to the nearest Qdoba because that's all anybody wants to eat. And then ending up in a tunnel somewhere eating Cold Stone. So it just a lot of like fun memories with people that I'll remember forever. I think PFP was definitely like my first big, like not my first thing in leadership, but definitely my first collegiate, like really big opportunity. And that came with a lot of stress, but also a lot of like great reward. And I really wouldn't trade it for anything. If I wasn't in PFP or I went to a school that didn't have something like PFP, would I still be involved in the FIRST community? I would like to say yes. I think the FIRST community has done more for me than just being involved in PFP typically does. I mean, the amount of friendships that I have, the amount of like connections. I mean, I'm moving across the country in 2 months, but I'm not that scared because I already have FIRST connections in Florida. The leader of FIRST Florida is like, I want to get dinner with you, and like, we'll find you a team and a community. And I think the cool thing about FIRST is that I'm leaving college already knowing I have somewhere to go, because the people that are here in Indiana that made me feel like I had a place to be and a place where my voice was heard and a place where I was significant are everywhere. Going back to what I said about FIRST being like everybody's selfless and empathetic. That is like across the country, I'm slowly realizing, and every single person that I talk to, no matter where they're from or who they are, just the kindest people in the world. I think if I was not at Purdue, I would have gotten more involved in mentoring, but even just volunteering and getting to meet people in the community, I think is what gets you in FIRST. So if you are not at a school that has something like PFP, look for events near yourself. Look up the FRC Teams map or the FTC Teams map online and try to contact a coach or like scour Blue Alliance. Like, this community will be here for you if you want to be a part of it, regardless of where you are. Some other stuff, just other anecdotal stuff. Sorry, Lydia, I'm trying to figure out what else I should yap about. I think some of my favorites while I was at Purdue, my favorite class was IE 383, which was like a forecasting modeling, like inventory management class. My favorite professor at Purdue was the professor of that class, Dr. Yee. I also really enjoyed my freshman year engineering professor, Dr. Whalen. I thought he was super awesome. Just because I think he had a really great introduction to Purdue. It was like strict but not too strict and just super fair, and I loved him. I think also with that, my favorite place on campus, I love the horticulture garden over by on the ag side of campus. I live about a 5-minute walk from there, and I try to walk by there at least once a day. Another thing about my time at Purdue, I love my major. I love what I do. If you go to college and you don't do something that's inherently super technical and inherently super, everything's hard, I think, first of all. Second of all, don't let anybody shy you away from something you're passionate about, because it's not as like, first of all, Purdue has the second best industrial engineering program in the country. Second of all, I am so passionate about project management, managing people, managing inventory, managing like how things go, making sure that things are efficient, making sure that people have a good experience doing something. That's what IE is all about, and I love it. Don't let people shy you away from something you love because it's not what they love. That is my advice for incoming freshmen as well, is like, don't let people shy you away from experiences or clubs or opportunities because it's not something that they would get involved in or is not something that they're passionate about. That was a lot of the reason why I almost didn't choose IE. That was a lot of the reason why I almost didn't stay in PFP first semester, because a lot of my friends in the honors college didn't know what FIRST was. And were really confused why that was something I was so invested in. And I'm so grateful that I stayed with it because I've really found my community through this organization. Things I wish I did differently when I was in college. I wish I had reached out more. I think I forced myself to become a lot more extroverted this year. I wish I had done that earlier because I think I'd have a lot more friends, a lot bigger of a community, and been able to have a lot more impact in organizations that I care about, like PFP. I think just in terms of Finn and at Purdue, people would know us more because we have people that are out there and saying our name. Be more extroverted. Find something you're passionate about. Do something you're passionate about. Those are all my big advices. Yeah, shout out to everybody that thought I was going to cry. Y'all wrong. I'm a tough cookie. Obviously I'm sad. I think that, this org has been a part of my life for 4 years, and, it's been like the most significant thing in my life the last 4 years. So I'm grateful. Grateful for everything I've gotten to do. Grateful for everything First is going to continue to do for me, even though I'm not a student anymore. All right, so with that, it's the end of the epi. Thanks again to everybody watching this who was a part of my first community or was somebody who impacted me throughout my time here. I know I told you this last time I saw you in person, whether that was at FRC State or a PFP meeting or whatever, but genuinely, I wouldn't be the person I am today without you guys and without this community, so thank you. So yeah, that's all I have. Thanks for letting me be your PFPod host for the first couple of episodes, and I won't see y'all next week because this is me signing off. Bye, guys.